the drum set, an instrument that's traditionally rooted in popular music and improvisation, could in fact have a place in my world of contemporary music performance. So my research and my doctoral studies here has been showing that composers have in fact been drawing from the drum set for many, many years, as early as the early developmental stages of the instrument itself. This evening, I'll present 4 unique approaches to drum set composition, which I have identified and defined as an outcome of this research. I have chosen to call these the tourist, the snapshot, non-idiomatic, and the confluent approaches. And these are really, they do not represent every existing work out there, but rather for me and for us tonight and for my research, it facilitates a discussion of significant additions to this drum set repertoire that in fact has existed for almost 100 years. As I said, the drum set is deeply rooted in popular music. And it's a defining element of most of the popular music that we know, what we hear on the radio, what we've grown up to listening for the most part. It is through these styles that generations of drummers have explored new musical and technical possibilities of the instrument. It is this history that remains linked to the drum set, even when crossing over into the contemporary music approach that we're going to be looking at this evening. This rich tradition of the popular instrument, its iconic players, the grooves, the styles, becomes the platform through which each composer navigates. This influences the musical content, the approach to performance, and even our preconceived ideas of the musical and technical potential of this instrument. Before we approach the composed repertoire, we should define what drum set performance is. I define it as the use of coordinated independence with both hands and feet on a collection of drums and cymbals, including the bass drum with pedal, hi-hat, and snare drum, set up for convenient playing for one person. And really the foundation, the fundamental element of this is the coordinated independence of both hands and feet. And this early development, really this capability began a movement where drummers sort of left the role of simply timekeepers and became more expressive around the instrument. This is no more evident than with the drummer Warren "Baby" Dodds. Baby Dodds grew up and was born in New Orleans and made his first drum set recordings with the King Oliver Band in 1923. He went on to record with everybody, but early icons such as Jelly Roll Morton and Louis Armstrong's Hot Sevens as well. He pioneered this new level of expressiveness with the drum set, all while maintaining a connection to the past traditions of the instrument that enabled this new exploration at his time. The solo Spooky Drums No. 1, which I'm going to be playing for you in a moment, was included on the first album ever of drum solos, and it was to document Dodds' early techniques. In Spooky Drums No. 1, Dodds truly references beyond a lifetime. We can trace his roots in marching and rudimental styles. You're going to hear an opening marching call that starts off the solo, and this foundation driving bass drum, which you'll see and hear. And also, we're going to be hearing this sort of new level of experimentation and expressiveness across woodblocks, cowbells, rims, the shells of the drum, and that he became so well known for. I transcribed this solo to learn more personally about this early drumming language and these historical developments that laid the foundation for the drum set performance. It is in this early stage of drum set development and this new creative exploration that composers first began to approach the instrument. My naming of the tourist approach, the first approach we're going to talk about tonight, is founded in Bernard Gendron's description of composer Darius Milhaud, who drew upon popular culture for means of new creative expression. Composers in Paris post-World War I were looking for a new French sound. In the words of Jean Cocteau, it was time to dismiss impressionism of the past. Enough clouds, waves, aquariums, water spirits, and nocturnal scents. What we need is music of the earth, everyday music. Composers drew inspiration from the new sounds of American jazz that could bring together low art of cafes, dance halls, and an exoticism of African and American culture into a new French sound. Milhaud toured the United States in 1922, where he began searching for what he called the authentic elements of jazz. Immediately upon returning to Paris, he began to work on the music for the ballet La Création du Monde, which was premiered in October 1923. The chamber ensemble, which he said is inspired by the bands that he'd heard in Harlem, included 17 members and one percussion part. One is drawn to Milhaud's drum set instrumentation, which includes a device called the clanger that attaches to the bass drum pedal and simultaneously hits the bass drum and a mounted cymbal. When I perform movement 3, the first of the 3 movements that we'll perform, you will see me somewhat awkwardly activate and quickly deactivate this little clanger mechanism. At this point in history, there are new devices starting that, like the bass drum pedal, were starting to allow the players to even gain more independence, this time by placing a cymbal at the feet. The distinct ragtime rhythms and these syncopations in La Création reflect early performance practices of drummers like Baby Dodds. We're going to now hear how Milhaud infuses these colors and rhythms of an era into his composition La Création du Monde. So, 1 year after La Création and back in America, another approach to composition again brought jazz and the drum set to the concert hall stage. What I call the Snapshot Approach aims to reflect or imitate an existing popular music style. In 1924, New York composer George Gershwin included drum set in his famous work Rhapsody in Blue. And the drum set part in the original score for the Paul Whiteman Jazz Orchestra is a snapshot of early jazz and really Tin Pan Alley popular songs. In more recent years, this approach has become, started to contribute to a large body of works, mostly for high school and university percussion ensembles, wind ensembles, even orchestras, and demonstrating parallels of various popular and classical music settings. This type of cross-pollination often leads to entertaining, groove-oriented material. One of the most popular works for drum set and percussion ensemble is Bonham by American composer Christopher Rouse. So in the work Bonham, Christopher Rouse uses this idea, what I'm calling the snapshot, to take sort of images of iconic grooves within a classical percussion ensemble context to celebrate a widespread influence of rock and roll that he's been influenced by John Bonham, and of course by the music of Led Zeppelin. In striking contrast, this next approach to drum set composition defies what has been considered as appropriate by applying contemporary music complexity that results in highly uncharacteristic performance style. In 1976, drummer Ti.Re-Ti.Ke-Dha performed the first notated solo for drum set called The Black Page. Composed by the legendary rock band leader and composer Frank Zappa, the solo can be heard on the Zappa in New York album released a couple years later in 1978. The title itself refers to the actual density of notes that fill the page, featuring an excessive use of nested polyrhythms and complex patterns for that time. Performing these patterns demands unusual crossing of limbs and movement around the drum set. The defined function of the feet, in particular the bass drum foot, which I'm circling a few of right there, is changed. No longer is the bass drum a timekeeper as much as sort of is more equal to that of the hands, involved in the thematic material in these linear flowing lines. Other works have followed. Nasenflügeltanz by Stockhausen is an amazing work that requires an extended drum set, 33 additional sounds stored in a sampler and triggered during performance. Rand Steiger's Elusive Piece is a duet for drum set and amplified cello. This was originally premiered by Stephen Schick and Maya Beiser on cello, and then just recently recorded by myself and Leanne Zacharias. Miss that hair. The most popular non-idiomatic work is a 1979 solo by James Dillon called Ti.Re-Ti.Ke-Dha. Dillon, considered a part of the New Complexity School, is described as firmly committed to music of dense surface, close to if not beyond the limits of performability, justified by reference to the fearsome intellectual discourse which is said to lie behind those torrents of notes. When preparing this piece, one is initially struck by the magnitude of the instrumentation, which you see over to your left. Also on this page, it brings us to the point of the reliance on some more advanced footwork, particularly Dillon's detailed writing for the hi-hat. The notation specifies for 3 different performance practices: an open splash, which I'll show in a moment, a closed foot attack, which are alternating here, open, closed, open, closed, open, closed, open, closed, and then other places, just a regular stick attack. And where these hi-hats sort of appear as anchors, as solid quarter notes, especially in this example, really buried in the layers of the rhythmic complexity and torrents of notes that the quote talked about, you sort of lose the sort of standard sort of function of the instrument. So I'll play right now just this page to demonstrate both the hi-hat technique. I'll give you a couple splashes also, and also the dialogue between the 2 voices. So these are the open splashes, and these are the closed. So this page, doing that. And these are my bongos, these are the toms. While these approaches hint at traditional techniques, it is the consistent level of this compositional complexity that draws our focus. While these past sort of approaches, the Tourist and Snapshot, draw inspiration from drum set tradition, this non-idiomatic repertoire imposes this contemporary classical multi-percussion tradition on top of the drum set. The Confluent approach to composition is what I call repertoire that brings together the rich history of drum set styles and various performance practices with new individualized compositional techniques that expands the potential of this instrument. American composer Stuart Saunders Smith in 1983 wrote his piece Blue 2. A jazz drummer himself, Stuart Smith draws upon the language of jazz improvisation for the musical material. Through composition, Smith creates new musical expression and techniques for the drum set at the time. Lucas Ligedy's recent drum set duet, Laconi in Kazonde, was premiered by myself and percussionist David Cosson. Lucas, who lives both in Brooklyn, New York, and Johannesburg, South Africa, flows through a series of melodies, grooves, polyrhythms that share roots in jazz improvisation, African traditions, expressed through his unique approach to composition. Canadian and Montreal-based composer Nicole Lizee has built a large body of work exploring the drum set, the musical potential of it, the connection to time, groove, popular styles, and iconic performers. This has led to numerous projects, including one of the more recent ones, the Concerto for Drum Set and Chamber Orchestra called The Man with the Golden Arms. Nikki has graciously arranged this work for us in a new form for percussion quartet and 2 electric guitars and myself as soloist. The main material of the drum set is based on what Nicole calls classic drum kit paradigms, or iconic grooves, techniques associated with influential players and musical styles. Nicole approaches this music through the process of recontextualization and reconstruction, as she describes, referring to the past or other contexts, but twisting, manipulating to create something new, vital, meaningful to me and to the now, without losing trace of its origins, place in history, functions, etc., but reinterpreting, filtering, and distorting all of these and placing it in a new context. Here we have the drum set, a naturally loud instrument with material of physical and musical complexity and increased speed paired with overtly quiet dynamics. So special care, preparation, and a new approach to the physical movements around the kit are necessary to meet the unique technical challenges. It involves reducing force, minimizing movement of not only the hands, but also the feet, which have a heightened emphasis in the rhythms of Golden Arms. Some drummers would find this type of performance constrained or restrictive. This is because the techniques go against our natural inclination and comfort level to simply hit the drums hard. Every drummer develops a personal attachment and an ear for their own drum set, and this music explores a lower dynamic platform than really what is customary. So in one sense, the drummer sacrifices something of what is natural or familiar to achieve these dynamics, yet approaching it considering the idea of being a confluent drummer suggests an openness to new paths of creativity. In this way, techniques are not restrictive, they're just simply new, and we're not playing quiet dynamics, but we're creating new colors, textures, and expanding the expressive range of our instrument. Through thoughtful practice, contemplation, and these new techniques can feel natural, fluid, and expressive.